Welcome to the Ironman Insider presented by Maurten. I am your host, Matt Lieto. I am super stoked for our second episode, mostly because I like talking about Ironman, getting behind the personalities. But we are super lucky to have a guest that I've got a lot to talk about, so we're going to get straight to it. Our defending VinFast IRONMAN World Champion, Lucy Charles Barclay. How's it going, Lucy?
Yeah, it's really good. I'm coming to you from a very sunny part of the world, as you can probably see. I'm currently in the south of France. So, yeah, super stoked to be on the podcast. And I know the first guest was a big hit. So I'm hoping I can do just as good a job as Sam Laidlow on the first episode.
Well, you haven't had an opportunity to listen to the episode, but spoiler, we both referenced your 70.3 World Championship win as the most impressive 70.3 performance we'd ever seen. So Sam gave you a good nod there.
Oh, well, that's very nice to hear from a fellow champion. So, yeah, still probably one of my favorite days racing that one in St. George.
Oh, unreal. And we're going to talk about it. It is, again, I think the most impressive 70.3 performance I'd ever seen, and to do it on a world championship stage was like, it's pretty awesome. And have you been you've been keeping an eye on the Pro Series stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I've been definitely watching and enjoying whilst doing some of my training on the indoor trainer, watching the Pro Series. And obviously we just had Hamburg at the weekend, and to see Jackie do the performance that she did and such an emotional finish that she had was just so lovely to see. And I'm so stoked for her. So, yeah, what a great performance that was.
Yeah, and it was insane. And she hadn't raced a Ironman since 2015, I think. Had a couple kids since then. But is there a woman on the circuit that doesn't see that performance and like be stoked that Jackie won? Like, she's so
I can't imagine that. Yeah, I can't imagine there isn't one woman who isn't stoked for her. I mean, just to know that she's had two kids, she's had such a hiatus from doing Ironman, and then to come back and put down that level of performance, it just shows that I guess there's no time limit on performance. Like, you can keep coming back and, yeah, just put down a performance like that. I think we're all just absolutely buzzing for her.
Yeah, and I think it's surprising, and it's not. The only reason it would be surprising is because we haven't seen her race that distance in a long time. And often when you see like a 70.3 specialist, it's because they're young and they're upcoming. But no, I think the year 2014, she did like 5 Ironman races. Like, she knows how to race Ironman. She just hasn't put her hat in that ring. So, yeah, were you surprised at all by like how impressive, like 252 first Ironman in almost 10 years? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think I definitely was surprised, but I guess I've kind of come to learn that you never write off any athlete in this. And I always knew that Jackie had a strong run on her, but to be able to put down a 252 after such a long period of time not racing Ironman, I think it's just so incredible. So, yeah, like I said, I'm just buzzing for her. And I think that will hopefully give her that confidence boost, and then she can just kind of run with it and hopefully put down some more performances like that. And we won't be writing her off anymore. We'll be thinking we've got to watch out for Jackie.
No, and I should know these times, but you know, if you haven't raced in 10 years and she went 8:19, I imagine that's a pretty big PR boost.
Yeah,
impressive.
I mean, that's definitely one of the fastest Ironman times for a female anyway. So, yeah, she's pretty much up there now.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, you know, what do you do with that FOMO? You said you're in a warm part of the world, south of France. What do you got going on?
Yes, I'm currently training. I'm staying between Nice and Antibes. So I'm doing a little bit of a training camp here, enjoying the warmer weather. I've also been out on the Ironman bike course. I was super lucky to have Marjolaine and Clement take me out on the whole course the other day. They gave up their entire day for me. So super grateful to them. And yeah, they showed me basically their home road. So they know it really, really well. And it's absolutely brutal, but so beautiful as well. So yeah, I had a really good time riding with them the other day.
Yeah, I mean, and I love that you are there, like for training camp. Like, that's where you would go to do a training camp, right? Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, I think I came and trained out here in 2019, leading into the 70.3 World Champs. But I haven't really been back since. And now I really am scratching my head as to why I've not been coming here to train with the amazing roads. I mean, we kind of said today, France is pretty much the home for cycling with the Tour de France. So you can understand why when you get out on these roads and you don't see a car and you just see, yeah, beautiful landscape and amazing climbs. It's been amazing to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. And any reason particular you're in that part of the world besides going on a long ride with those two wonderful hosts?
Yeah, well, I guess I have decided to race Ironman France, which is in a couple of weeks.
Sweet.
So I thought I'd come out and suss the course before. And yeah, I've been very warmly welcomed to the area. I've actually been swimming with the Antibes swim team who have been putting me through my paces. I'm not usually at the back of a lane in swim training, and these swimmers are serious swimmers. So
No way.
I've been swimming with them, but getting put through my paces and, yeah, just cycling the local roads here and running along the promenade. It's been amazing. So, yeah, the feeling is very good at the moment.
Awesome. And stoked to hear you going for an Ironman race. I mean, the last time I saw you, your lower leg was blue. I think a couple days post Kona at my brother's house. So like that injury is feeling good, and now you're confident to go the full distance.
Yeah, I think that was one of the main things at the start of the season was I was still recovering from that injury. I basically had a grade 4C tear in my calf, which the only thing worse than that is pretty much if you're in a car accident in terms of tearing the muscle. So it was a really extreme tear that I did. I had to have a total of 16 weeks off of running after Kona. So that was, I guess, where I was in a difficult place because I wasn't sure how well my body would come back to racing after that level of injury. So I had to be very cautious. And then I guess my season has got off to a really good start. And that has given me the scope to be able to go and race a full Ironman, see how the body goes over that distance. And I guess just remembering that that's what got me into the sport. So I felt like I wanted to go and do another Ironman and see how much I could test myself.
That's awesome. And we need to get back to that calf tear because there's so much I need to hear about that and what I witnessed on that day where that occurred. But no, that's awesome. So what about, I mean, obviously the Ironman France course is legendary, and it was kind of before the World Championships was there too. Is there anything specifically about that course that you think suits you or challenges you in a way now? Like obviously finding challenges, having won the World Championship is probably more difficult than it has been.
Yeah, I think getting into the sport, it was all about trying to find the biggest challenge, which was why I was an athlete that instantly came into the sport and just decided that I was going to do Ironman. And then I guess I had some early success in that distance, but I just loved the challenge more than anything else. And my first Ironmans were Ironman UK, then Ironman Lanzarote, both notoriously tough Ironmans.
Right.
So I know that I love a tough course. Going out and riding the entire course the other day, I did feel like you deserve a medal just for doing the bike. Was scratching my head as to people have to run a marathon after this. So I am really looking forward to that challenge. I think it's something that excites me, and I do just love to race when you're like, actually, I don't even know if I can do this. Having done a lot of Ironmans, I'm sure I'll be able to, and I'm sure the crowds here, I've heard, are very, very good in France. So I'm looking forward to witnessing that. But yeah, it's going to be a really tough day out, and I'm looking forward to it.
And do you think that course suits kind of your strength as being kind of a front runner?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be. Yeah, it's going to be one of those courses where I don't really think it matters where you're positioned. It's going to be very much an individual effort. You're not going to get towed around on the bike. You've got to be able to climb. You've got to be able to descend. You've got to be confident on your bike. It's going to be probably one of the biggest elements of the day for sure. So yeah, I think it's all about being gritty and being tough. And that's something that I feel like I've always kind of had within me when I've been racing since I was young, I guess.
Yeah, no, you've definitely shown a lot of grit. And this course, Yeah, it certainly tests, although pretty similar. If you look at the numbers, pretty similar to Lanzarote as far as like maybe a little bit more climbing, but the run is similar, right?
Yeah, I would say it definitely is similar, and I've always loved to go and train in Lanzarote as well. So it gave me similar memories to kind of doing that Ironman. But I think that the course here is, it just feels tougher. But I'm not sure if that's because it feels like you're climbing for longer in one climb, because in Lanzarote the climbs aren't
Right.
quite as high. So although you do almost a similar amount of climbing, I feel like it just feels tougher here because you just feel like I've been climbing for so long. But yeah, as someone who does enjoy that, I think hopefully I'm going to enjoy that whilst doing the entire bike course.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously you came out to train to recon for Ironman France. Is there a chance Ironman France is a recon for another Ironman later in the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, coming out here, I wanted to make sure that I liked the course. I felt like it suited me. And then I felt like there's no better way of wrecking the World Championships than doing the entire course pretty much in a race simulation. So to be able to come here, do Ironman France, be able to validate for both the Ironman World Championships and the 70.3 World Championships in one race, it seemed like an absolute no-brainer. I already am so happy I've come out here. I've been really enjoying the riding and just getting used to the course. I think it was something that initially scared me a little bit, but I always felt like, you know what, sometimes in life you should just do the things that scare you, and that will challenge you and help you to grow, not just as an athlete, but as a person. So that kind of drew me to it. And I think that I'm definitely happy that I've made this decision, and just by able to do the entire race in a recce run before coming back and doing the World Championships in September, I feel like hopefully that's going to help me a little bit.
Well, everybody listening except for the uh, female pros that are hoping to race in Nice is pretty excited to hear that. That's certainly big news. And again, like we talked earlier about St. George, like you are just so good on a variety of courses and tough courses that as confident as any elite female would be, they would have to be kind of terrified that the defending champion is going to go on a course that, you know, it's hard to say it's tougher than Kona, but it takes more time. So like you can infer that it is going to be tougher. Yeah, that's awesome. So are you like, does that, I know it's been a long season with the injuries and all that, but does that really help also like define the season, right? Like I imagine you've kind of just been kind of floating a little bit, right?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I've been obviously just building throughout the season, being able to really build up that run mileage. Obviously, there's a distance of running per week that I feel like I need to hit to be confident that I can run a good marathon off of riding that distance. So it's taken me a
Yeah.
while to kind of get to the point where I'm like, you know what, I'm confident in my body. I'm confident that I'm hitting that mileage. And now I feel like I'm in a position where I can come back and try and defend that title that obviously has felt like such a journey to just get that title. So to be able to defend it, I feel like really happy that I've got that opportunity and that I'll be able to try and do that.
Oh, so stoked. As a fan and someone who's been able to be right there for your two world championship wins in the Ironman scene, I'm stoked to hear that. It's gonna be awesome. And you mentioned that this also then does validate for you to go back to 70.3 worlds. Is that have you looked at the course in Topa, and like are you excited and air quotes committed to going down 70.3 worlds as well?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would love to. And I think just by obviously validating here, I will have the option to race there. It's going to be a really, really long season. So I don't want to say that I'm
Yeah,
100% committed to racing there. It will also
sure.
be late in December. I think it's actually on my wedding anniversary. So I'll have to check with Reese that he's okay for me to race again. But yeah, we'll just see how the season goes. I've never been to New Zealand either. So it's somewhere that I would love to go and visit and race. But yeah, we'll just have to see how
Awesome.
the season plans out.
Awesome. Well, I saw Reese giving a thumbs up in the background, so I think you're good to go. No, that's awesome. And yeah, let's talk about a little bit about the validation process has been has changed and evolved over the years. And am I right in that if you've won a world championship in the previous 5 years, you get like an automatic qualification, but you then have to still validate by, or in the past, you've had to validate by doing a race of that distance?
Yeah, for sure. So in the past, obviously being on the podium, I always had to validate to get back to the World Championships. And then once you win a
Yeah.
world title, you kind of get this 5-year grace period where you just have to validate to come back. We're also in a really fortunate position this time where you could choose between doing two 70.3s or a full distance to validate. And yeah, I've opted to do the full distance this time around on the same course. So yeah, I think that's a pretty smart way of doing it.
No, that's sweet, and it's cool to see. And I know the pros have been talking with Ironman, and was a lot of back and forth. And now, kind of the new thing is to be able to qualify without having to do a 70.3 in that same year if you do an iron distance race. And it's it's this balance, right? Like we want to make sure everybody's still fit, but we want to make sure if you, for instance, your calf is a little that we're not forcing you to like add more races because we want you to get there to defend the title, not just to get around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that makes sense for all the athletes when you're coming to these major races. You don't just want to be there to finish the race. You want to be there being competitive and seeing how you stack up against the best women in the world. So it does make complete sense. And you want everyone that's on that World Championship start line there ready to give absolutely everything. So yeah, I think we're all going to be in the best position to do that.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about Kona, if you don't mind. I know it's was a long journey for you to get that first win. How many attempts at Kona have you had, and how have those goes? How have had those gone until that win?
Yeah, well, I guess the first time I set foot in Kona was in 2015 as an age grouper, taking on what felt like, I guess, a once in a lifetime opportunity to step foot on the big island and race the Ironman. And then I never really even thought in that moment that I would come back and compete professionally. It wasn't until I took my pro license in 2016 and came back and watched Reese compete in Kona. And I remember watching the pro women come out of the water there thinking, I really want to be doing this next year. Like, it would be a dream come true to just be in the pro field, seeing if I could make it just to Kona, just to line up against those women. And then to come second in 2017 was just mind blowing. I remember it's probably still, I wouldn't say it beats winning it, but it was close because I just could not believe it. Like, it just blew my mind. I think I was only 23 at the time. So, or maybe I just turned 24, and I just could not believe it. And then I think I felt like, well, it must only be a matter of time before I can win this thing, because I've rocked up and managed to come second in my rookie attempt. I never thought that I would then come second another 3 times to make it 4 second place finishes before I finally managed to get the win last year. So it has been one hell of a journey. It's been a roller coaster. There's been ups, there's been downs, there's been injuries. But yeah, I knew last year that I had to win it, or that I might not do it. So I think despite the injury that I kind of sustained just before the race that then exploded on the marathon, I feel like it wouldn't have mattered what happened to me. I could have lost my leg. I would have just hopped to the finish. Like, there was no way I was going to stop. Right. So yeah, one hell of a journey, and still means so much to have got that win last year.
Oh yeah, so impressive, and that consistency. I think in elite sport, it just doesn't happen. Like, people talk about that in bike races, like Tour de France or whatever. Like, everything has to happen, everything has to go correctly every time, right? And if people pay attention to you throughout the season going into these races, it does not go smoothly all the time, right? Like, you've had a history of having these injuries that you've dealt with, and to have that consistency is amazing. What do you think allows you to have, clearly you have to have a lot of focused training, but a lot of patience to be able to set yourself up to be there every year in October?
Yeah, definitely patience is one of the key things, I think, with any sport, but obviously with the injuries that I'd had, and I think it was around this time last year, actually, I'd broken my foot. So I was in a moon boot at this time last year. So even when I was doing my long run yesterday and it felt tough, I was like, this time last year you was in a boot, like you wasn't even running. So just got to appreciate
Crazy.
when you are healthy. And yeah, I guess it also gives me a little bit of confidence knowing that I did have that massive injury and then was able to build through until Kona. So yeah, I guess as well, recently I had a health diagnosis, which I know you know about, Matt, where I was diagnosed with celiac disease. And we actually think that a lot of those injuries that I had could have been linked to that, where I hadn't actually been able to absorb what I've been eating in my diet. So I think as well, I feel a little bit better now knowing that. I feel healthier and hopefully a little bit more confident in my body as well, that I'm not damaging it every day by eating the wrong things. So yeah, I'm hopeful that that will help as well.
Oh, it's huge. And for those listening, the reason she said I'm also celiac and I have been for a long time and aware of it. And my nephew pointed it out on Instagram. He's like, Matt, talk to Lucy. And the first thing I said was, oh man, she is like the injuries, and that is, it's not a thing of the past, but the consistency of those injuries is going to change greatly with basically your body just doesn't absorb nutrients and you're obviously doing everything you can to give your body what it should, but you're like putting in this like poison essentially that's not allowing it to absorb, right?
Yeah, I guess it's been completely eye-opening. And there was a period of time where back in 2021, actually, I did do just a food intolerance test, and gluten was quite high up on that.
Yeah.
So we decided to just cut that out along with the other foods that were high on that list. And in 2021, I just felt the best I've ever felt. But even then, I didn't realize that even if you eat the tiniest amount of gluten, like it doesn't matter if I eat a whole pizza or literally a crumb of gluten, it's going to have the same negative impact. So like earlier in my career, I'd go into races carb loading on pizza and pasta, not knowing that actually that's entirely, my body doesn't want that whatsoever. So yeah, it's been quite
Right.
eye-opening, but it makes sense as to why I did feel quite good in 2021 when I made that change. But I guess over the years, I've just kind of flurried with it and just thought, oh, well, I feel a bit rubbish if I eat gluten. But actually now I realise that, yeah, I probably shouldn't have been eating any of that, or I definitely shouldn't have. So, yeah, that's been a little bit of a journey in itself as well. But I think loads of people are like, oh, it's so hard that you've got to cut out these foods. But I think actually as an athlete, we're constantly making sacrifices to help with our performance. And for this one to be even more important because it's my health, I feel like it should be quite an easy change to make.
Yeah, and it'll take a little bit, but nowadays it's certainly a lot easier. I mean, like when I was diagnosed, I was 25, and I remember going on a long ride with my brother like the week after, and I was just eating like rice cakes. Like I didn't know what to eat. So like literally on this long ride, he took me to the doctor's office. It was like, you've ruined my brother. He can't ride his bike anymore because I like just couldn't figure out what I needed to eat. Where nowadays there's so many great, gluten-free recipes and gluten-free products that you can get off the shelf that it's pretty easy to avoid. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I feel quite lucky that although it probably has had a negative impact on me growing up, I feel like quite lucky now that there are so many more options around. And actually, there's some really good gluten-free cake. So that was the main thing I was really upset about, that I might not be able to eat cake anymore. But I've found some good gluten-free cake out there, which, yeah, has made life a bit better again.
That's awesome. So for what it's worth, I looked at shipping cookies because I have this world-renowned, my own special gluten-free chocolate chip cookie recipe, but it was like 200 euros to get to get you cookies, and I was like, I don't think we have the budget yet. It's early in the podcast, but I will make you a batch in Nice, and I'll get you some of Matt's world famous gluten-free cookies because you'll never want to go back. And I'll send you the recipe.
Yeah, thank you.
But really, it is. I'm super stoked because every athlete knows that the injury roller coaster is like an emotional one, and I think this obviously should balance things out. But like that's what to me was so impressive about all those second places, and then to see you get that win. Like, I mean, let's talk about, and I want to talk about the rest of your race, but, and I think you've done a pretty good job, and certainly during the race, like you didn't overhype that injury. You didn't talk about it beforehand, but like I got word in the middle of the marathon from, I think it was from Caden or somebody on course, that was like, "Hey, Lucy's got a calf tear." And I'm like, "What the heck?" I'm like, and I go and I try to find you, and I saw Reese, but before I saw Reese, I spent 5 minutes like directly behind you on a moto and looking at, I'm like, and I couldn't decide which leg it would have been if you had a calf tear, because you were not, like, your stride did not change at all. And I like called those people back. I'm like, there's zero chance she has an injury, because I just watched her for 5 minutes, and then I caught up with Reese and he told me about it. How in the world could you push through that pain? And for those that didn't see, like, you were on crutches the next 2 days. Like, you couldn't walk, right? Like, how did you push through that pain and still run that to win? Is it just this like light at the finish line? It's crazy.
Yeah, I think maybe in any other race, I would have stopped because I knew I was doing damage in that moment. But the journey I'd been on and being second 4 times and the injuries that had come in between that, I was like, this might be my best and last shot to win this race. If I never race again, I want to have won this race, which seems extreme, but that race meant everything to me. So I guess I don't even know if I can even go back into the mental space that I was in that race. When I spoke to my coach, Dan, afterwards, he said, I think there's only like so many times in your career that you can do that to yourself, take yourself to that space. And I would definitely agree. It was mile 1 on the Kona Marathon where I just felt like the entire calf just tore. And I remember getting onto Alihi Drive, and every single person on there was like willing me to win. They said they were like, "This is your day, you're going to do this." And internally I was just like screaming, like, "You've got no idea what I'm going through in this moment." And I just knew I just had to just keep putting one foot in front of the other and move forward. And I would look at my pace and be like, "Oh, my pace is actually bang on what we wanted, even though I'm in agony. So what does it matter? It's just pain." You're still going exactly to plan. So if you can just try and block out the pain and just go with the pace. And there was definitely times where the pain got worse, so I would have to just ease back a little bit, and then the pain would get less and I could push it on again, but then it felt like it came back worse. So yeah, internally I was having this unbelievable kind of mental battle to just keep going. But yeah, I guess towards the end, I remember seeing Reese. I think I came out of the energy lab and maybe had like 8 or 9K left. And he was like, "Have we got this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've got this. Like, I have not come this far through this much pain to stop now." And I remember that obviously the gap behind me was coming down. I had probably one of the strongest runners in the sport, Annie Howe, chasing me down. And I was just like, not this time. Like, she's overtaken me before late in that marathon, and I just was like, not today. Like, even if, I guess my biggest fear was Polani going back down, because I was just like, you've just got to take this bit really slow, because this could be like disaster. So yeah, there was a huge fear. And I think also, like, I didn't slow down once I was on Alihi Drive. Even going up the finish line, I didn't high five anyone, which is something I regret. But I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to get there. Like, I just had to get across that finish line. And yeah, it was crazy. Like, I still can't even believe I've done it sometimes. Sometimes I wake up and have to remind myself that I did do it. But yeah, it was insane.
Well, and what's insane about it is, like, I knew, right? Because I talked to Reese, and I think when I asked him off camera, he used a word I can't repeat on, like, "How's your calf?" And it was like, it's not very good for the PC language. And so after the race, I'm like, holy crap. Like, I watched this woman run and never show on the face, never show it in the stride. The calf and the Polani thing, like, for those that don't know, if you have a calf injury, and I did too, I think maybe it's a celiac thing or whatever, but running downhill, if your calf is tweaked, like it can just go and you can't, like it is the worst position to be in if you have a calf tear, is to have to run down any hill, let alone Polani, because nobody wants to run down that hill. But for me, like after the race, I'm like, guys, isn't that crazy that Lucy pushed through all this pain? And like you held it so well that nobody believed me or thought it was important, because they're like, no, she was totally fine. Like, I just, how are you? I just still don't get where you can put. Like, I'm good at pushing through pain, but pushing through pain where like you're not showing it in stride length, or like you weren't leaning over more to use your glutes. Like, did you go to a different place in your head to like just eat it, or was it just, I've done too much to get here and I need to get to the finish?
Yeah, I think, I mean, part of maybe where the game face was coming from was that I was really focused on that calf, like just all my attention was going to that. And
Okay.
I guess also I actually think I was running slightly different to how I've normally run. It looked good. Like even when I watch
Interesting.
it back, I'm like, you would never know. But I feel like my form was actually slightly cautious, maybe like I wasn't really going for it how I would have been running in my training beforehand. And I just feel really fortunate that my running had been going well beforehand in the race. I think if it hadn't, then obviously I wouldn't have had like a fallback with having an injury. I think it just allowed me maybe to have a little bit of a cushion because running had been going so well before. But I still,
Yeah.
like in training, if something hurts, I'm like, right, we must stop immediately. Like there's no way in case I make this worse. But in that scenario, it was like, just keep going, like do not stop.
And yeah, it's just insane. Like I tweaked my calf. I didn't run in a lot of years because I had a hip replacement, and I tweaked my calf, like a light tweak. Like I stopped running 30 seconds after it tweaked, and I was limping for a week, and I haven't run since. And that was a month ago. So to run a marathon at that pace through it is bananas. But so on the race up until that point, was that, like you said, you had tweaked it a little bit? Did that affect your uh, tactics in the race at all? Because like you were gave yourself quite a gap. Like talk us through that kind of that swim and that bike and where your head was then compared to the, okay, I've gotten second, fourth place, which is crazy, consistent and amazing, but like I don't want that again.
Yeah, I think my tactics were really similar to the years before. I know that my strength is definitely on the
Okay.
swim and on the bike. So I knew that I had to use that. And I guess I tried to not let any negative creep in about knowing that I had a slight niggle on the run. And I almost told myself how well the running had been going before that happened, like a week out from the race. I was like, you were running so well, like you have to back yourself, you have to back your run. And then knowing, obviously, when I got off the bike, I knew I had a really good cushion to the really strong runners. So I knew that I didn't have to run a crazy fast run split to get the win. I just had to run something that was completely within me. Um, and yeah, I guess that probably helped a little bit, knowing I didn't need to push it. If I'd had to push it, it probably would have been it would have been too much. Like it probably would have got to the
Right.
point where maybe the two muscles completely came apart. Like that was one of the things when after the race, when I got the calf looked at, I actually went to, I was basically a guinea pig for a day. I went to a college where they were all studying MRI scans, and they were, I think it was actually ultrasound scans. So they had the ultrasound
Okay.
on my calf, they were moving my foot, and they were saying, actually, you were so incredibly lucky because although the tear went all the way downward, somehow the muscles are still functioning together. And maybe
Right.
if I just pushed it too much, they wouldn't have functioned together, and then the leg wouldn't actually have been able to run anymore. So, although they were completely shocked that I had run a marathon with it in that state, they were like, maybe the Hawaiian gods were there, keeping it just about functioning so that you could finally get that win. And it felt a little bit like that on that day. That I know they talk about Madame Pele, but it felt like maybe she was like, you're so stubborn, you've come back for the fifth time, but I'm going to make it tough for you. If you really want to win this, I'm going to challenge you to your absolute limit. And it really felt like she did do that. And I guess for me, it feels like winning it would have been enough to just have to wait five times to finally win it. But it means even more knowing what I went through on that day to get the win.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it speaks to how you carry yourself. And obviously the second places will get people on your side, and kind of racing from the front. People enjoy that. But if I'm being honest with you, like that win in St. George and that win in Kona, me personally, like I was like, I don't have any favorites, but I'm like, holy crap, like she's doing it. And it like is awesome. And like everyone else in the finish chute in that area, like they're always excited for the champion, but it seemed to be up a level. Like everybody was so stoked that you won in St. George the way you did. And everybody was like so ecstatic that you won in Kona. Do you have any thought as to what that is, or why you might have that kind of response?
I guess, yeah, a lot of people would have felt that built up frustration maybe that I had, even though I don't feel like I really showed it. I was always incredibly proud of all of those second place finishes, but maybe a lot of people felt like they were on that journey with me and were like, when is it going to be her time to win this race? And obviously I do share a lot of my journey online as well. I try and be open with the highs and the lows, sharing the injuries that I have. So people knew that it hadn't been the smoothest journey to that start line again. So I really did feel that. Like I felt like I had their energy on that run, and everyone out there was willing me to win that day. And I felt maybe a bit more pressure as well to do it that day, because I really felt that energy that everyone was just willing me on to win. So to do it and have that energy as well, I think it just means so much as well. And I feel incredibly grateful to have so many people supporting me, obviously within my team, but also in the wider team and the community as well. Like I just feel so much love from the Ironman community. So yeah, it felt amazing to be able to win it and give that back to everyone as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you make a good point. Like I think what's interesting about all the second places is, like I literally, and I've tried to get it out of you in interviews, like you'd be like negative about it, like crap, I want to win. Like every time you're like, I'm stoked. That's the best I could have done. I'm really pleased with it. And I think people realize that, and that humility that's within that, and like the work that goes around that. And yeah, well deserved, obviously. And so building into possibly 2 more World Championship bids, is anything? I mean, there's been lots of changes. Any changes besides nutrition and moving things forward as far as making sure your body can adapt to that new diet with the celiac?
Yeah, I think that's definitely been the biggest change. I think one of my biggest goals really for this year, before I even found out that I was celiac, was just to try and stay healthy for a whole year. It's been difficult in the last 2 years.
Right.
So yeah, that was a big goal of mine, just try and stay healthy and see what you can do in a healthy body. And now to have that diagnosis and feel every day a little bit healthier, a little bit stronger, already seeing progression in my training in the right direction. I think it's been really eye-opening, but it just gives me a bit of confidence knowing that I'm in a healthy body. I think also getting the win in Hawaii last year just kind of took off this internal pressure that maybe I had to get that win. I just feel like I've been enjoying training so much more this year, just doing it for the love of doing triathlon rather than having and wanting to get that win. So I'm hoping that's going to just give me a little bit more energy as well. I feel a lot less stressed, and yeah, just able to train for the enjoyment and love of doing this sport.
That's so awesome. And you found great spots to do it, obviously, finding the south of France to be able to get around and train. And I'll say, I'm sure right now, once the podcast goes live, there's going to be a rush on tickets to Nice to watch you kind of defend that title. And man, I'll tell you what, and I think you felt it too. Yeah, tell us about the difference on the women's only race. Like it felt that race in Kona, like that week leading into it, it felt like a warm hug. Like everybody was like high-fiving each other, and like everybody wanted each other to do the best that they could on the day. Can you tell us, like, did you feel that energy as well?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, since I've been in this sport since around, I guess, 2014, 2015, and the women's side of this sport has just grown and gone from strength to strength since then. So to have just a women only day was just incredible. But like you said, that feeling before the race, there was just so much joy and happiness and everyone wanting each other to do well. And then out on the course, like I remember descending back from Harvey and going in the other direction, and I'd say like nearly every single woman cheered for me during their race, and just you just don't get that in any other sport, I don't think. So yeah, it's just incredible to have so many strong women across age group to professional in this sport. And yeah, I'm hopeful that we can kind of just continue that legacy and inspire more and more women to give this crazy sport a go.
Well, no doubt the way that you carry yourself and your performances is continuing to inspire women to give their best and what they can do, see what they can do in triathlon and iron distance racing. So appreciate that. And Lucy, appreciate so much your time coming on the podcast, and so excited to hear that you're going to be in Nice. The validation goes okay, and look forward to watching you at Ironman France.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's going to be a new challenge, new course. And yeah, I can't wait to give it my best in a couple of weeks, and then, yeah, get ready for the big one in September.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to see it. And again, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Well, there you have it, Lucy, an absolute legend. And being honest, when I say like being a part and seeing her win, you really did feel like everybody wanted her to win both those races. And so it's great to see her get that world championship title, and stoked to hear that she's going back to defend. It's going to be awesome to watch. And, you know, as the rest of our pro series has been pretty dramatic at times, a lot of stuff has been happening, a lot of great racing. And our next races in the series will be at Ironman 70.3 Boulder this upcoming weekend, and Cairns Airport Ironman Asia Pacific Championship Cairns. And I'm pretty excited about both of those. I'm going to be on the ground giving you more insider looks at what's happening behind the scenes at those races. Pretty excited about those. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you're sitting on the trainer, you can also watch the podcast as a video on our Ironman Triathlon YouTube channel. And to stay up to date on the latest Ironman Pro Series news, follow Ironman Tribe on Instagram and check out proseries.ironman.com for standings, athlete bios, episodes of A Fighting Chance, and replays of the races and more. And, you know, we've said, we had two of the best athletes on the planet, obviously, coming in, two defending world championships winners, and those are both Maurten athletes. And I can't say a big enough thanks to our presenting sponsor, Maurten. They're the official sports performance nutrition partner of the IRONMAN Global Series. And in 2023, both Sam and Lucy, Charles Barclay, fueled their world championship victories with Maurten's Hydrogel technology. It's the innovation that enables athletes to consume more carbohydrates at race intensity with less risk of stomach discomfort. And all Ironman athletes actually have access to Maurten hydrogels and solids on course in 2024. So thanks again to Maurten for everything that they do for all the athletes on the Ironman scene and the Global Series, but also specifically for this podcast. We can't do it without them. So thank you as well for listening in and joining us on our second Ironman Insider podcast presented by Maurten. And be sure to keep an eye on this space for more great conversations with the big season ahead and good conversations with the best athletes in the sport. I'm Matt Lieto, and thank you so much for tuning in.